Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of Live Chat with James, coming to you from the ProPix TV studios here in Vancouver, British Columbia. Tonight we'll cover headlines from Surrey, British Columbia, Metro Vancouver, across Canada, and of course around the globe. Following our report on the headlines, we'll also cover a special report on two different stories. And the first one being Canada's Amber Alert system. And we'll hit some key points, such as research that suggests Canada's Amber Alert system is effective in recovering abducted children while they are most found alive and in good condition. We'll also look that it seems likely the system works best for parental abductions, with some controversy over its impact on stranger abductions. And of course, the evidence leans towards a high success rate, but there are concerns about alert fatigue and geographic targeting. Given the current situation and news coming out of Nova Scotia, we will be looking into the Amber Alert system, and of course this is of an important topic at this time. We'll further take another look at the opioid crisis in Canada and the United States, and how some communities are finding creative solutions to try and tackle the ongoing problem. Now, research suggests that overdose crisis in Canada and the US is driven by synthetic opioids like fentanyl, with over 30,000 deaths in Canada since 2016 and over 100,000 in the US in 2021 alone. It seems likely that the challenges include high death rates, polydrug use, and disparities affecting marginalized groups, worsened by the COVID-19 pandemic. We are still seeing the impacts of that. Now, the evidence leans towards cities implementing unique solutions like telehealth for treatment, naloxone distribution, and community-specific programs to reduce deaths. So again, we'll cover both of those stories in depth after we cover today's headlines. Now, we start with a story of opportunity for young people in South Surrey. Last night actually, from 5 to 9 p.m. at the Bayside Rugby Clubhouse, a job fair was underway connecting local youth with employers. Organized at Bayside Rugby Club and Elgin Park Secondary School alumni, this event is being called an investment in youth. Employers from retail, hospitality, and tech sectors are on hand, offering part-time and entry-level positions. Organizers say it's a chance for students and young professionals to build networks and kickstart careers. If you're in the area and actually took part in that event, we would love for you to share some comments and let us know what you thought of the event and how you see that helping you moving forward. We'll definitely keep you up to date throughout the week as we get comments in from those who were in attendance. Now let's take a look at education news. Surrey schools celebrated over 240 employees for their dedication at the annual Long Service Awards. Two staff members, including Eva Meisner from Surrey Traditional School, were recognized for an incredible 50 years of service in the Surrey School District. Now, the event highlights the commitment of teachers, administrators, and support staff who have shaped generations of students. Superintendent Jordan Tinney called these employees the backbone of our district. Congratulations to all of the honorees for their remarkable contributions. I still remember many of my teachers from growing up, whether that was in Mississauga, Ontario, or Capitol Hill in North Burnaby, British Columbia, as well as secondary school in North Burnaby as well. So congratulations to all of those Surrey school staff who were honored and recognized for their decades of service. Now to a story that's got everybody talking in Surrey. One resident is $80 million richer. A single ticket purchased in Surrey matched all 7 numbers in Friday's Lotto Max draw, making that the largest win ever in the Lottery Corporation history for British Columbia. The winning numbers were 6, 10, 16, 17, 30, 38, and 48. The winner has not yet come forward to claim the prize, but we will be watching to see how and who the latest millionaire is here in Surrey, British Columbia. It could be you or a neighbor. Who knows? Check those tickets. Surrey were following up on this story as it develops. Now, in troubling developments, reports have surfaced of a City of Surrey employee allegedly defrauding the city of over $2.5 million. Details are limited, but posts on X indicate this could be one of the largest municipal fraud cases in recent memory. Surrey RCMP and city officials have not yet released a statement, but we do expect an official response soon. The city is looking to try and recover those funds, but we don't know how well that will go or whether or not it is realistic to expect any or all of those funds to be recovered. Now, this story raises serious questions about oversight and accountability. Stay tuned for updates as we dig deeper into this unfolding situation, and we will bring you more coming up on Friday's edition. Turning to Metro Vancouver, the real estate market in spring of 2025 is shaping up as a buyer's market. The Greater Vancouver Realtors Association reports high inventory and lower borrowing costs, creating favorable conditions for home buyers. However, economic uncertainty is dampening sales, with prices expected to dip slightly. In Surrey, a $330 million mixed-use tower project by Pure Group and Global Education Communities Corp. is moving forward, aimed at addressing the housing crisis with student-centric rentals. With rental vacancy rates at just around 0.8%, projects like this are critical to address the housing shortage in our region. In crime news, a Hells Angels member from Surrey, Jasminder Bassi, faces charges of uttering threats following an incident on March the 25th. Bassi was released on bail with the court appearance scheduled for today, but police remained tight-lipped due to the ongoing investigation. Meanwhile, a second man was arrested in Quebec in connection with a 2024 double shooting in Surrey that injured a husband and wife. These incidents underscore ongoing efforts by Surrey RCMP and Metro Vancouver Police to tackle violent crime. Once again, we will keep you posted on both of these cases as they move forward. Before we move to the national news, let's check in on the weather. A warm day in Surrey and Metro Vancouver with highs near 26 degrees, but a thunderstorm warning is in effect for parts of Surrey for later tonight. Expect possible flooding and travel disruptions. Stay safe out there, and we'll have a full forecast later in the show. Keeping in mind also that if the thunder shower does take place, of course, that really increases the risk of wildfires and igniting fires throughout the local mountains and communities. So remember, if you spot a fire, make sure to call in and report it. Don't assume that somebody else has. Of course, the quicker the response on these wildfires as they start, we know in British Columbia and throughout Canada, the faster they are reported, the faster the response, and therefore the more likelihood of getting them out before they're out of control. So again, if you do notice any strikes by the lightning over the next few days, please make sure that you report any instances of forest fires or fires starting. Now let's move over to the national headlines. Shifting into the national news, the federal carbon tax remains a lightning rod in Ottawa. Today, Conservative leaders reiterated calls to permanently get rid of the tax, but of course, we know that it has been eliminated for most of the country when it comes to the federal level and here in British Columbia. Now, what is being brought up, though, by the Conservatives in terms of that is the way in which it was removed, and then we saw a brief reprieve from high gas prices, and now, of course, with certain shutdowns and problems with refineries, we're seeing the fuel prices skyrocket once again, which brings us back to almost the carbon tax level pricing, without the carbon tax, of course. So that leads to question, are we just being gouged at the pumps once again? We had that small reprieve, but the prices are skyrocketing, and whether or not it is the impact of the refinery issues or not, are we being gouged across Canada, and is there ongoing price fixing within the oil industry and our fuel? Again, we'll watch how that works, but we'll also be very interested to watch how Mark Carney's new cabinet picks that were announced today, or actually yesterday, sorry, and how they are going to impact issues such as world trade, the environment, the economy, and so much more. And I'm sure that we will hear the different replacements to the carbon tax as to how we're going to pay for the climate change and the reduction in our gases and environmental impacts. So again, we'll watch and see how that plays out with the new cabinet and moving forward to what they describe as an industry-paid system as opposed to a taxpayer-paid system. But again, I think it all comes to the same head, that it's going to cost us more regardless as to how it goes down. Now, let's move on to housing affordability measures. Housing affordability, of course, is top of mind across Canada. The federal government announced funding today for cooperative housing projects aimed to add 10,000 affordable units by 2030. In British Columbia, critics say the plan falls short given the province's low vacancy rates. In Metro Vancouver, where rents remain among the highest in Canada, local MPs are pushing for faster action. We'll look at these measures and the impacts in the region in the coming months as new projects develop and as new funding is announced with the new Carney government. Now, let's take a look at a landmark decision in the Supreme Court of Canada as it pertains to Indigenous land rights. Now, the Supreme Court of Canada ruled in favor of First Nations in British Columbia, affirming their land title over a 500 square kilometer area in the interior. The ruling strengthens Indigenous land rights and could set precedents for unresolved claims nationwide. Legal experts say negotiations with provincial and federal governments will now intensify. This is a developing story with significant implications for reconciliation, and we will keep you up to date as this progresses. In terms of the Canada Post labour talks, Canada Post workers are inching closer to a possible strike once again. The Canadian Union of Postal Workers issued a 72-hour strike notice after months of stalled negotiations. A work stoppage could disrupt mail and parcel delivery ahead of the summer season. Canada Post says it's committed to reaching a deal, but residents are advised to plan for potential delays. Again, this is the second potential work stoppage at Canada Post in the last 6 months, and we'll have to watch how it plays out. But again, be prepared just in case, again, Canada Post walks out and goes on strike. So you've been warned, and make alternate arrangements. Of course, this plays into higher usage and profits by the private courier and delivery companies, but it is the, as we say, necessary evil of having a Canada Post system, and one in which is so reliant on the workers and the unions coming to an agreement with the Canada Post Corporation. Now, let's take a look at the Vancouver Canucks. On the sports front, some exciting news for hockey fans. The Canucks have signed a top prospect to an entry-level contract. The defenseman, drafted 11th overall in 2023, is expected to bolster the team's blue line. The Canucks GM Patrick Elvin praised Willender's skating and hockey IQ, but whether or not this is going to make any difference for us going forward for next season is questionable, as we know that the Toronto Maple Leafs lost tonight, got their asses handed to them in a 6-1 defeat. So again, Toronto is down one game in the series, so it's, I believe, 3-2, if I'm not mistaken, for the series at this point, with Toronto down one. Health Canada issued a new warning today about the risks of vaping, citing rising rates of lung injuries among youth. The agency is tightening regulations on flavored vape products, which critics say target younger users. In Surrey and Metro Vancouver, local health officials are ramping up education campaigns in schools, and they are asking for parents to talk to your teens about the risks. If you want more information about the risks of vaping, especially among youth, you can visit healthcanada.gc.ca for more information. Now, the international news that's going about from Ottawa to the world stage. We're now turning to the international headlines. But first, a quick break. Stay with us because you won't want to miss what's coming up, including a major climate summit and escalating tensions in the Middle East. And during this quick break here, I just wanted to thank our program sponsor, Carey Movers. Again, Western Canada's favorite family-owned and operated moving company for several decades. They provide local moving services in the Metro Vancouver and Fraser Valley region. They also provide long-distance moves for residential, commercial, office, and other relocation projects throughout Western Canada. If you are in need of reliable, safe, and courteous movers in Metro Vancouver or for long distance in Western Canada, contact Carey Movers at 604-687-1746 or find them online at www.careymovers.com. That's K-A-R-Y movers.com. Once again, 604-687-1746. Carey Movers, your friendly, family, experienced moving company in the local community. Now back to international headlines, folks. We begin our international coverage with the COP30 Climate Summit, which had opened last year in Brazil, and again, different discussions that were taking place, and whether or not we are going to reach the targets that were set out within that COP30 summit are now up in question. We, of course, know that wildfires and floods hitting closer to home, this summit will affect everyone. But again, whether or not the U.S. is committed right now to these international programs and international alliances is up in the air. This makes us question whether or not we see the expansion of these climate actions by the international community, or whether or not things are going to be pulled back some in light of trying to decide whether or not the U.S. is going to be a dependable and reliable partner within the context of international programs. Now, in the Middle East, diplomatic efforts are underway to prevent further escalation between Israel and Iran-backed groups in Lebanon. But today, the United Nations urged all parties to continue to respect the fragile ceasefire along the Israel-Lebanon border after recent skirmishes. Canada's Foreign Affairs Minister, Melanie Joly, called for a de-escalation, citing the risk to civilian lives. Humanitarian aid agencies warn of a growing refugee crisis, and we will monitor this as it goes on. Once again, the ceasefire is in place, but it is a very fragile situation that could change at any moment, and we will definitely keep an eye on that. South of the border, of course, we know Donald Trump is renewing tariff threats to certain nations while removing or reducing against countries like China. Trump has signaled again looking at more tariffs against Canada or increasing it. But again, now we have a new prime minister, and it is hoped that with Mark Carney and his new cabinet that was announced recently, that they'll be able to get back to the bargaining table with the U.S. and find an amicable solution that is beneficial to all. Now, of course, both sides, industries like the film and manufacturing industries, are bracing for potential impacts. But again, we do expect that trade talks will continue and they will intensify next week. If you are curious about the impacts on the film and production industry, we did do a special episode last night, so feel free to look at our archives there, and you can find more information on the current status of the film and television industry within Canada and the United States, in addition, of course, to both sides in terms of co-productions. Now, of course, the Vatican had announced a historic moment in time that a first American-born pope was announced. And of course, what some people didn't realize is that his parents identify as black. And that is a big move forward for the Pope and for the Catholic community. So again, communities throughout the world are celebrating with special masses planned and some that have already gone forward. So we'll keep an eye on that, as it is a very significant and special moment for the global church. Now, some inspiring news. The 2025 Nobel Prizes were announced this week, with Canadian scientist Dr. Emily Chen, based at UBC here in Vancouver, shared the Nobel Prize in Chemistry for her work on sustainable battery technology. Dr. Chen's research could revolutionize clean energy storage, and that is a major win for Canada and for the planet. Congratulations, Dr. Chen, and thank you for putting BC on the global stage. Let's take a look at your Metro Vancouver weather in a bit more detail. Tonight in Surrey and the surrounding areas could see thunderstorms with a risk of localized flooding, lows around 14 degrees Celsius. Tomorrow, expect partly cloudy skies with highs of 22 degrees. The weekend looks dry and sunny, perfect for outdoor plans. For the latest updates, go to the weather app on your phone or to Global News here in Metro Vancouver and across Canada. Let's also keep in mind that as the weather does look dry and sunny this weekend, people will be out enjoying nature, the trails, and having a good time, I would surely hope. The also benefit of a sunny, dry weekend, of course, is taking in the Cloverdale Rodeo if you're in the Metro Vancouver, Fraser Valley area, or if you're traveling inbound for the event. Reach out, let us know what events you are attending at the Cloverdale Rodeo and fair this weekend. Also, let us know your thoughts, share some images with us, and we'll put them on the show next week. Once again, the Cloverdale Rodeo is one of Western Canada's oldest rodeos that takes place every year and brings travelers and visitors from around the globe. Once again, remember the sunscreen when you go out to the rodeo this weekend to enjoy it safely. Make sure that you drink lots of fluids in that warm, sunny weather. But most of all, have a great time, folks, and enjoy it. In sports, Vancouver FC is gearing up to host Halifax in the Canadian Premier League this weekend, with the team riding a high after a strong season. Meanwhile, Surrey's cricket fans are buzzing as the Surrey women's team takes on Somerset tomorrow at the Metro Bank One Day Cup. Best of luck to Phoebe Franklin and the team. And I believe it's Phoebe, or could be Phoebe, I'm not sure. I apologize if I mispronounced, but don't forget the Canucks training camp is going to be something that we're looking forward to, but at this time, of course, we're without a coach. Right now, the Canucks are looking between Manny Malhotra and Adam Foote as potential contenders to be the new head coach of the Vancouver Canucks. We will keep you updated, and of course, as this happens, we will watch and see what announcements come out, what changes are going to transpire within the team, and of course, hopes of keeping a certain all-star player who has played his whole career in Vancouver, but whether or not he will be lost to the UFA or unrestricted free agency this summer, we'll know, I guess, coming up on July the 1st, and we'll hope that Brock Besser stays here as a Canuck, as he is definitely a fan favorite, a great leader for the team, and a community ambassador who gives back with heart and soul to the local community. So we hope that Brock Besser will stay in Vancouver, but we'll keep you updated on any transpiring stories that come along with those points of interest for Canuck fans. Before we go, let's give a quick shout out to the Surrey Awards 2025, recognizing the best restaurants, bars, schools, and more. Finalists were announced today, and voting is open until June the 1st. Visit surreyawards.ca to support your favorite. And a reminder, Guildford's 2025 Fireworks Fiesta is at risk due to funding cuts. If you'd like to help save this beloved event, check out guildfordfireworks.org. And of course, that is where we are at. It's a recap of tonight's stories. The Youth Job Fair has happened. The fraud rocks Surrey City Hall, and local resident still unknown that won the $80 million Lotto Max jackpot last week. So we'll wait and see who that lucky winner is. As we continue on here, that's it for the headlines from Surrey, from Metro Vancouver, Canada, and around the world. As we continue tonight's report, we're going to move on to the bigger stories, or at least the more focused stories, and we'll take a look at, first, the overview of the opioid crisis in Canada and the United States. Now, the overdose crisis, primarily fueled by opioids, especially synthetic ones like fentanyl, remains a significant public health risk and issue in both Canada and the United States. This report is going to explore ongoing challenges and highlights of innovative city-level solutions to reduce overdose deaths based on data up to May the 14th, 2025. Now, Canada has seen over 30,000 opioid-related deaths since 2016, with the crisis evolving from prescription opioids to illicit fentanyl and other synthetic opioids. By 2020, over 75% of opioid deaths involved fentanyl, often mixed with stimulants and other drugs, creating a polydrug crisis. Disparities are notable, particularly among Indigenous communities, and data collection gaps hinder effective responses. The COVID-19 pandemic exacerbated the situation with increased isolation and reduced access to service, and we are still seeing the impacts today of that increase. Now, in the U.S., the overdose deaths reached over 107,000 in 2021, with synthetic opioids like fentanyl driving a 103-fold increase in deaths from December 1999 to June 2023. Stimulants like meth and cocaine also contribute, with death rates rising 64-fold and 7.6-fold respectively. Minority groups such as non-Hispanic African Indians and Alaskan Natives faced higher death rates, 30 per 100,000 in 2019, and the pandemic worsened outcomes due to social isolation and limited care access. Now, unique city initiatives are taking place, and cities are innovating to combat the crisis, with some examples such as Philadelphia in the USA. The OD STAT team reviews overdose deaths to inform policy and bereavement support to help families, while programs assist families with substance-exposed infants. In New York City, the expanded naloxone distribution and outreach programs, including mobile centers, serve at-risk populations. Baltimore, in the U.S. again, the Staying Alive program trained over 163,464 residents by 2024, contributing to 18,000 overdose reversals, and KOD prevents youth substance use. Now, in San Francisco, they offer telehealth programs, methadone take-home approvals, and contingency management programs with 561 naloxone boxes in supportive housing. In Rhode Island in the United States, Prevention Overdose RI provides data and resources, and an overdose fatality review team identifies prevention opportunities. These initiatives show a mix of medical, community, and policy approaches to reduce the overdose deaths effectively. But again, the numbers are very high, both in Canada and the US. Now, the survey note provides a comprehensive analysis of the ongoing overdose crisis in Canada and the United States, focusing on the challenges and innovative city-level solutions to reduce overdose deaths. The data is drawn upon from authoritative sources, including government reports, city-specific programs, ensuring a detailed and up-to-date perspective as of May the 14th here in 2025. Now, some of the challenges that we face specifically here in Canada, and then we'll take a look at the US, but overdose crisis in Canada has been persistently a public health emergency since 2016, with significant challenges identified through recent reports. According to the continuous opioid death crisis in Canada, related to overdoses, changing characteristics and implications for path options forward, that stated that over 30,000 people have died from opioid-related overdoses since 2016, exceeding other major accidental death causes. The crisis has evolved with a shift from prescription opioids in the early 2010s to illicit synthetic opioids, particularly fentanyl and its analogs, since 2016. By 2020, over 75% of opioid deaths involved fentanyl. and approximately half also included psychostimulants such as methamphetamine or cocaine, as well as benzos, and of course, creating a polydrug death crisis. This evolution increased overdose risk and reduces the effectiveness of interventions primarily geared towards opioids. Now, disparities are a significant concern with Indigenous communities and other marginalized groups disproportionately affected, as noted in the government response. And that was 8512-421-134 of the House of Commons of Canada. That the need for culturally appropriate care is evident, yet access remains limited. Especially on reserves, data and surveillance gaps further complicate the response, with challenges in standardizing data collection across provinces and territories is highlighted in Evidence Synthesis, the Opioid Crisis in Canada, National Perspective. Now, the COVID-19 pandemic, of course, exacerbated the crisis, with preliminary data indicating a 25% increase in opioid-related fatalities in Ontario alone from March to May in 2020 compared to 2019. Now, recent developments include increased attention to the toxic illegal drug supply, with xylazine emerging as a new risk factor, often mixed with opioids and increasing overdose risks. Federal actions such as funding drug checking technologies and expanding overdose prevention services in correctional institutions are ongoing. And that was detailed in the federal action on the overdose crisis. Of course, we know that there is a problem with different types of drugs and substance abuse that carries forward in the penal system in Canada and the US. Now, challenges that the United States are facing, which are very similar to many in Canada. Now, similarly, the severe overdose crisis with record high death tolls reported by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. According to Overdose Prevention Strategy, overdose deaths reached over 107,000 in the U.S. in 2021. That is a 15% increase in overdoses from 2020, with synthetic opioids, particularly illicitly manufactured fentanyl, being the primary drivers. From December 1999 to June 2023, fentanyl-related overdose deaths increased 103-fold, while psychostimulants like methamphetamine saw a 64-fold increase, and cocaine deaths rose 7.6-fold, reflecting a broadening crisis. Disparities are pronounced, with non-Hispanic American Indians or Alaska Natives experiencing a death rate of 30 per 100,000 in 2019, highlighting inequities in access to care. Vulnerable populations, including those without insurance, incarcerated individuals, and people in poverty, face higher risks, as noted in the HHS Overdose Prevention Strategy. The COVID-19 pandemic worsened outcomes, with overdose deaths reaching 93,331 in 2020, driven by social isolation, stress, and reduced access to treatment and harm reduction services. Now, federal efforts in terms of the HHS Overdose Prevention Strategy focus on primary prevention, harm reduction, evidence-based treatment, and recovery support, aiming to address these challenges comprehensively. Now let's again take a look at some of the other areas in which unique city initiatives are being brought in to reduce overdose deaths. Cities in both countries are implementing innovative, localized strategies to combat the overdose crisis. As we go forward, we'll take a look at a breakdown of unique initiatives with specific examples and metrics where available. Let's start in Philadelphia, where their Substance Use Prevention and Harm Reduction Program, as outlined by the Substance Use Prevention and Harm Reduction Programs and Initiatives of City of Philadelphia, focuses on reducing related deaths, and unique initiatives include the OD-STAT team that reviews selected overdose deaths to identify trends and inform city policies, ensuring data-driven approaches. Bereavement Support offers free support groups, counseling, and other services for families who have lost loved ones to overdoses, addressing the emotional impacts. Programs for families of infants, of course, provide specialized support for families of infants exposed to substances during pregnancy, focusing on early intervention and family well-being. In 2021, Philadelphia reported 1,276 fatal drug overdoses, the highest on record, with non-Hispanic Black Philadelphians experiencing the highest rates, particularly due to the toxic drug supply. Meanwhile, shifting over to New York City, the New York City's response detailed in Mayor de Blasio's launch series of initiatives to reduce drug overdose, and that includes expanded naloxone distribution. They funded the distribution of 7,500 additional naloxone kits to community-based organizations and hired peer educators to enhance the capacity. Harm Reduction and Outreach in New York City expanded their programs, including mobile outreach and drop-in centers, to serve an additional 12,000 individuals at risk of overdose. They've also increased surveillance and assessment, increased capacity to conduct citywide surveillance of opioid misuse, identifying emerging trends for targeting interventions. Initial assessments in 2015 confirmed 886 drug overdose deaths, with 15% involving fentanyl, a significant increase from previous years. Now in Baltimore, Baltimore's response, as described in the Baltimore City's response to the opioid epidemic, includes Staying Alive program that was launched in 2024. That trains individuals to recognize overdose signs and administer naloxone. By 2024, it had trained over 163,464 residents, contributing to more than 18,000 overdose reversals. The Kids Off Drugs, or KOD program, also in Baltimore, is a school-based initiative to prevent substance use among youth through engaging programs. In 2023, Baltimore saw 1,043 drug and alcohol-related deaths, with 921 involving fentanyl. That's reflective of the city's highest overdose fatality rate in the U.S. Meanwhile, on the West Coast, over in San Francisco, the Overdose Prevention Plan for 2024, detailed in the Overdose Prevention Plan 2024, includes several unique initiatives. And yes, it may sound as though I am repeating myself, but I'm just giving you where that information is from. And a lot of times the documentation is the same name as the program. So it's not that I'm reporting it twice or repeating myself. I'm just giving you the name of the documentation that was included in this research. Now, in terms of telehealth and navigational programs in San Francisco, they provide on-demand telehealth services from 8 a.m. to midnight, connecting individuals to prescriptions or methadone with next-day follow-up. The Bridge Clinic expansion expanded hours for in-person and telehealth services, including launching a 72-hour methadone program. When we look at the methadone take-home program approval, or take-home approvals, that was secured for all San Francisco methadone clinics, allowing unsupervised at-home use to increase treatment flexibility. When it comes to contingency management programs, they increased from 5 to 10, doubling that number since 2022, with a focus on Black, African American communities, offering incentives for treatment adherence. Post-overdose and response interventions basically looked at strengthening follow-up programs, training approximately 500 paramedics and EMTs to start treatments such as I'm not even going to pronounce that because I'll mess it up on you. Buprenorphine, I believe it's called. But anyway, and adapted the Alcohol Sobering Center for drug overdose responses as well. So again, a lot of different initiatives happening in communities across the country. Meanwhile, also there in San Francisco, they have the naloxone distribution in supportive housing, which installed 561 naloxone public access boxes across 52 supportive housing sites. They also trained over 960 residents and funded a peer-led program with 20 peer-first responders. In terms of community-specific initiatives, they've tailored programs for Black, African American, Latino, X, and Indigenous communities, including translated materials in Spanish and 4 Mayan languages, and community-led monthly convenings. So again, hoping to reach out to the other marginalized groups or other minority groups to give them the information and resources in their language. The plan met goals such as opening 70 additional residential step-down beds and increasing MOUD initiation by 22%. That was exceeding the target of 20%. Now, over in Rhode Island in the U.S. also, their efforts, as outlined in their drug overdose prevention program, include Prevention Overdose Rhode Island, a platform providing public access to overdose data, harm reduction resources, and treatment options with outreach services in high-impact areas. Now, Overdose Fatality Review Team is a multidisciplinary team that coordinates with the Substance Use Epidemiology Program to review deaths, identify prevention opportunities, and recommend policies. The Governor's Overdose Task Force aims to end the crisis, ensure racial equity, and use data to drive change, as noted in the Prevent Overdose Rhode Island-End the Epidemic. So in conclusion, of course, we have looked at the crisis on both sides of the border, and the overdose crisis in Canada and the United States is complex, driven by synthetic opioids, polydrug use, and disparities. With the COVID-19 pandemic adding further challenges that we are still years later trying to recover from. Cities are responding with innovative solutions, from telehealth and naloxone distribution to community-specific programs and policy reforms. These efforts, detailed in city-specific plans and reports, demonstrate a comprehensive approach to reducing overdose deaths and supporting affected communities. Of course, there are also state, provincial, and federal programs that are being initiated to try and help to reduce the numbers of overdeaths and the lives lost to the drug epidemic. If you or someone you know is in need of services, just use Google and find the resources in your community, the local mental health or drug and addiction services links. Once again, you don't have to go through it alone. There are treatment options out there for those willing to participate. So with that, folks, we will leave that part of the report behind. But again, if you have any comments, suggestions, or story ideas, make sure that you send them through in the comment section or email us directly, smile@propixcanada.com. That's SMILE at PROPICScanada.com. As we move forward with tonight's show, let's take a look now at Canada's Amber Alert system and how it is successful, but again, it has its limitations. So let's take a look at that in more depth. Of course, we know that in the case of the Missing Sullivan Children in Nova Scotia, Canada, who went missing on May the 2nd, and still there is no sign of these two children, ages 6 and 4. So again, it is questionable whether or not there would have been other results or outcomes should the Amber Alert system have been initiated sooner. But unfortunately, the information, the statistics, and the history of the program dictates that it is more beneficial when it is a parental abduction and not a stranger abduction in terms of the efficacy and the positive-driven results. So let's take a look at Canada's Amber Alert system, as it is a vital tool for public safety, alerting communities about child abductions to aid in a quick recovery. It operates through the Alert Ready system, using TV, radio, and mobile devices to spread information. From 2015 to 2024, 91 alerts involved 115 children, with 108 of those children found alive. That shows a strong effectiveness. However, there are debates about its use, especially regarding alert frequency and targeting, which could affect public response. Now, the system activates when a child under 18 is believed to have been abducted and in danger, with police issuing alerts via Alert Ready. Criteria include sufficient description information and imminent risk. Alerts interrupt regular broadcasts, providing details like the child's description, vehicle information, and any other reportable information or details that they have available, and also broadcasts out to the cell phone networks of Canadians. That is aimed to engage the public as additional eyes and ears for law enforcement and is geographically targeted when it comes to mobile devices. Now, data from 2015 to 2024 shows 91 alerts with 108 children found alive, 7 deceased, and 1 still missing. Historical data from 2023 to 2012 indicates 70 out of 73 children recovered safely from 64 alerts. Studies like one by Timothy Griffin suggest the 31.5% success rate in the U.S. of the Amber Alert system, hinting at effectiveness, especially for parental abductions, though less so for stranger cases. And when I say stranger cases, I mean stranger abductions. Now, certain concerns, challenges, and criticism includes alert fatigue from frequent notifications, and that potentially desensitizes the public, and complaints about nighttime alerts. There's also debate over province-wide alerts versus localized targeting, which could dilute focus. Expanding it to missing adults is discussed, but maintaining effectiveness is key. Now, the Amber Alert system is named after Amber Hagerman, a 9-year-old abducted and murdered in Arlington, Texas in 1996. And that's a crucial public safety initiative designed to alert the public about child abductions, facilitating the swift and safe recovery of missing children. In Canada, the system was first implemented in Alberta in December of 2002 and expanded nationwide in 2004. It's operated through the Amber Ready system, which disseminates alerts via television, radio, and LTE-connected wireless devices. The system's primary goal, of course, is to engage community members as additional eyes and ears for law enforcement, leveraging public assistance to locate abducted children quickly. In Canada, the Amber Alert system is provincially operated, with each province having its own committee, but only law enforcement can issue the alerts. The criteria for activation, while varying slightly from province to province, generally includes the following points. A reasonable belief by law enforcement that an abduction has occurred. The child is 17 years of age or younger. The child is in danger of serious bodily harm or death. Sufficient descriptive information is available about the child, the abductor, or the vehicle involved. The child is not already safely recovered at the time of the alert. Well, that one kind of is obvious. But in any event, once these criteria are met, an alert is issued through the Amber Ready system, which is based on the Common Alerting Protocol, or CAP, and uses a Canadian variant of the Wireless Emergency Alerts standard for mobile devices. Alerts are broadcast with a distinctive attention signal, an 8-second sequence of alternating tones, and appear as crawlers or full-screen notices on TV. With text and audio components in English, French, or both, wireless alerts are mandatory and non-opt-out, display as emergency alert, with a 600-character limit using the same attention signal and vibration pattern. Usage statistics and success rates from 2015 to 2024 in Canada's Amber Alert system saw 91 activations involving 115 children. The outcomes, as detailed, highlight the system's effectiveness. Now, I won't go through the entire 10 years, but I will say that most recently, total activations were 10 in the year of 2023, with 12 children and plus one vulnerable child involved in that alert, or those alerts. 13 were all found alive, so that was a good year. In 2024, 8 total activations of the Amber Alert system with 10 children involved. All 10 were located safely and found alive. So again, I can go back on the stats for several years, but again, it just gives a quick indication. Now, totaling these, 108 children were found alive, 7 were found deceased, and 1 remains missing, indicating a success rate of approximately 94% for children found. That's 108 of 115, considering the +1 vulnerable in 2023 as potentially included in found alive. Historical data from 2003 to 2012 shows 64 alerts involving 73 children, with 70 recovered safely and 3 deceased, reinforcing the system's high recovery rate. Now, the studies and research on its effectiveness go as this. Research on the effectiveness of Canada's Amber Alert system is limited, but insights can be drawn from both Canadian data and U.S. studies. A study by the University of Nevada criminologist Timothy Griffins, as we mentioned earlier, examining 275 Amber Alert cases in the U.S. from 2003 to 2006, found a 31.5% success rate in child recovery, noting the system was more effective for parental abductions than it was for stranger abductions, for which it was originally designed. And that is where we are at. Now, when we shift over into Canada, the high proportion of children found alive suggests effectiveness, particularly when alerts are issued, prompting with sufficient descriptive information. The system's role as a crime control theater has been debated, but some U.S. studies suggest limited life-saving impact. But Canadian data shows a strong track record, so it shows the difference between the U.S. and Canadian systems to that end. Now, despite its successes, the Amber Alert system faces several criticisms. One significant concern is the high alert fatigue, where frequent alerts, especially province-wide, rather than geographically targeting, may desensitize the public, increasing the risk of alerts being ignored. For instance, Ontario's province-wide alerts have been criticized for causing unnecessary disturbance, particularly at night, with some recipients complaining about sleep disruption without contributing to the search. Now, 2019 opinion piece by Robin Urbank in the CBC News highlighted the need for fixes such as better timing to balance public engagement and response. Another area of debate is the geographic scope of the alerts. Current practices often broadcast alerts province-wide, which may not be necessary for localized abductions, potentially diluting public focus. The Public Safety Minister, Mike Farnsworth, had previously noted challenges in ensuring geographically targeted notifications, especially for potential expansions like silver alerts for missing adults or seniors, which could further complicate the system's effectiveness if not managed carefully. Now, in terms of public awareness, the Alert Ready system, including Amber Alerts, undergoes biannual testing, and typically in May during Emergency Preparedness Week and November to ensure functionality. The May 8, 2024 test was issued by Public Safety Canada for most provinces, excluding Manitoba, the Northwest Territories, Nova Scotia, and Prince Edward Island, with Ontario testing on May the 15th, 2024. These tests distributing a 30-second message, 60 seconds in bilingual provinces, aims to maintain public awareness and system reliability, addressing issues like the 2018 test failure that did not reach all mobile subscribers. So in conclusion, we see that Canada's Amber Alert system has demonstrated significant success in recovering abducted children, with data from 2015 to 2024 showing 108 out of 115 children found alive. While effective, particularly for parental abductions, challenges such as alert fatigue, geographic targeting, and public desensitization require ongoing attention. Continued evaluation, refinement, and public education will ensure the system remains a vital tool in protecting Canada's most vulnerable, balancing effectiveness with public engagement. Now we'll take a quick moment just to discuss what we've just reviewed here and how this really gives more of an understanding as to why the Amber Alert system had not been used in the case of Lily and Jack Sullivan in Nova Scotia. Now, this recent case, if you haven't heard, is of Lily, a 6-year-old girl, and Jack, a 4-year-old boy who live in rural Nova Scotia. They are thought to have wandered out the sliding glass door of the family's trailer and gotten out through a hole in the fence to explore the woods and have been missing ever since May the 2nd, and now of course we're on May the 15th, so they've been missing for 13 days out in the wilderness, if that is in fact the case. Now, we know that there have been some discrepancies in the reports and some questionable comments made by the parents or actions by the parents of these 2 young children, but at this time it has not been publicly identified by the law enforcement agencies or investigators as a parental involvement, kidnapping, disappearance, whatever you want to identify it as. Right now, all investigatory tools and investigatory options are still on the table. It should be said, though, that over the time that these children have been missing, there were at some points over 160 volunteer searchers out there scouring the bushes in the community for these 2 missing young children. Now, regardless as to the details of it, our thoughts definitely go out to the parents, the family, the community, and everyone there in Nova Scotia in relation to these young children. We are not going to make speculations here tonight. We are just bringing information as to why we do feel that the Amber Alert would not have been very advantageous in this case. Now, of course, there have been absolutely there's been no evidence of someone on the property that would indicate a stranger abduction from the home. That, of course, is an important point when looking at the use of the Amber Alert system. Now you couple into it the firm belief at the time that the children were reported missing that they were thought to have wandered off into the wilderness in the community. So again, not a effective use of the Amber Alert system if they were indeed missing in the bush and the forest. But at the same time, the RCMP in the community in Pictou County, Nova Scotia, moved rapidly to bring in search teams from all different levels of government and volunteer agencies within the province. So they did not, by any means, stand still and sit on their hands. They took every possible step to get the teams in place and get the search underway for a safe recovery and return of these children. Here we are, of course, May the 15th, 2025. These children are still missing with no signs of their whereabouts. So again, the other area that you need to look at is the efficacy of the Child Amber Alert system. It is most effective when it is a parental abduction. And again, that is something that we just discussed throughout the program and looked at the statistics. Now, of course, because both parents were at the residence at the time of the children being reported missing, that was another part of the Amber Alert checkmark analysis that they would do before using the Amber Alert system. So again, that explains another reason why they decided not to utilize that service. When it comes to the Amber Alert system, of course, the stepfather has been critical of the RCMP and the investigators because he felt that the Amber Alert system should have been used and that they place people at the borders of the province as well as at airports and other transportation hubs. Now, rest assured that even though the Amber Alert may not have been issued, the police did get information out to the local media, to the regional media and provincial media. In addition, they would have sent alerts to all points of transportation hubs such as bus stations, airports, and so forth. So again, it wasn't that they ignored any of those points. They would have by default contacted them even though they had not done an Amber Alert. So those are just some of the reasons why it probably was decided that the Amber Alert was not the best way in order, or not the best use of services at that time, and that it didn't really have an impact looking back as to all of the points that we covered earlier. So once again, folks, I hope you enjoyed this show. Make sure to leave your comments in the comment section. Even if you are watching the rebroadcast, we do watch all of those comments and pay attention and may share your comments on a future episode. Once again, I am James Cousineau coming to you from ProPix Canada Media here in Vancouver, British Columbia. Please stay tuned for future episodes. Don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe. Hit that little bell button if you're on YouTube so you can be aware of when new content is posted. If you have story ideas or comments on the show that you don't want to share publicly in the comment section, you can always email us at smile, S-M-I-L-E, at propix, P-R-O-P-I-C-S, Canada.com. That's smile at propixcanada.com. Everybody have a great day. Stay safe out there. And once again, thanks for joining us for another live episode. Have a great night, everyone, and thanks for tuning in.